Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the Morpheus webinar today, hosted by Ingram Micro's Emerging Business Group. My name is Carlene Edge, Marketing Manager here at EBG. Today's webinar will last approximately 35 minutes, and in terms of general housekeeping, your lines have been muted for the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box on your screen, and we will address them as we get to them. Now I'm going to hand things off to Ingram Micro's Senior Sales Executive that covers Morpheus, Jimmy Augustine. Jimmy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Carlene, and thank you, valued Ingram customers, for taking time out of your busy day to join us. I've had the pleasure of working with Morpheus for about 6 months now, and I have been really impressed with not only the technology, but also the people at Morpheus. I think we can all relate to the facet and the fact that at the end of the day, technology has increasingly become table stakes. And how you win in this marketplace is the people on the other side of the table. And what you will find in working with Morpheus are high quality, high integrity sales professionals. And I've enjoyed my interactions with the Morpheus team. And I think if you give them an opportunity to prove not only their technology, but to prove their wares from a people perspective, you will be equally impressed. And as testament and as a proof point, we're fortunate to be joined by Martez Reed, Director of Technical Marketing. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton over to Martez. Martez, over to you, my friend.
Thanks, Jimmy. Glad to have everyone on board today. What we're going to walk through today is enabling hybrid cloud and DevOps self-service with the Morpheus platform. As Jimmy mentioned, my name is Martez Reed, Director of Technical Marketing with Morpheus Data. And so as we jump into things, really kind of the focus is how can Morpheus be definitely a great partner to you from a selling standpoint. So one of the things that we provide is generous margins, our SPIF program, and one of the things that I think is really interesting to me is the hardware and sales drag that it comes with our software capability. We're going to delve deeper into how can we actually provide some of this functionality and capability. So the question is, what if you could sell $200,000 deal today and have a follow-up of 1.6 million this year? We're going to unpack that as we walk through. But let's get started with understanding the Morpheus platform and the value proposition. So the challenge or the problem that Morpheus is looking to solve is just the sheer complexity of IT, especially in a hybrid cloud, and nowadays a self-service DevOps environment. For those that have been around large enterprise IT, you are aware of some of the challenges that have traditionally taken place where there is a need for the business to get a new service or a new application up and running. And what ends up happening is development teams will need to start developing the application. But typically before they start development of the application, they need infrastructure and the resources associated with services that align with that particular application. And so some of the challenges that large IT and enterprise organizations have commonly faced is trying to deploy workloads, whether it's on-prem or in public cloud, in a easy and simple to use fashion, and also get that speed that's needed. Typically what would happen was there was a request from a development team to provision a new server. And oftentimes the request would take, let's say, a month or longer in some cases in order for the developer to get back that particular server. That's because of the challenge of various different touch points and manual handoffs between teams. So it's a case of the virtualization team spinning up the server, but as opposed to just spinning up the virtual machine, there's the need for an IP address. There's the need for DNS. There's the need for backup integration, storage facilitation to enable the storage to be underlying that virtual machine. All these various different touch points that are necessary in order to actually reach the outcome of the developer getting that virtual machine or getting those services associated with the, let's say, an application stack. And then ultimately, once the developer has been able to complete their job, then you get into a situation of where the business can then start to see value. So really the focus of the Morpheus platform is how do we simplify this process from a request standpoint and really condense the time it takes to get workloads ready to go and be utilized and consumed from the previous days and weeks that it's often taken to a matter of minutes from sort of that push button to getting the resource that's needed. And so if we take a look at the Morpheus platform supports 20 plus clouds. So looking at AWS, Azure, GCP, VMware, Nutanix, OpenStack, various different clouds that the platform supports and easily integrates with out of the box. Then stepping up to that layer where we start to talk about integrations, things like IP address management, DNS, load balancers, configuration management, backups, CMDB, being able to automate all that. And really the core area of the platform is focused on workload lifecycle management. So as I mentioned, being able to provision workloads, virtual machines or instances in the public cloud, but also integrate with the various integrations that we have for IP address management, DNS, load balancers, configuration management, to automate the provisioning of that virtual machine or that instance in scenarios for enterprise IT organizations that need all those various tie-ins to the provisioning of virtual machines. Oftentimes, one of the challenges has been is the 70 odd steps that a lot of organizations take for the provisioning of a virtual machine that have to be walked through oftentimes in a manual process. And so how can we simplify that and automate that? That's being able to easily tie that into the Morpheus platform is a key focus of workload lifecycle management. In addition, there are the day two operations. When we start talking about self-service provisioning, being able to have development teams request those workloads, but then be able to manage those in a meaningful way on a D2 standpoint. So being able to facilitate things like operational tasks from a self-service platform, self-service UI, being able to interact with the virtual machine. So let's say it's a case of being able to restart it or potentially delete it when it's no longer needed for development purposes. Being able to run custom automation that's been developed by the organization for tasks like database maintenance or particular things for application maintenance, being able to simplify that process. And then finally, being able to facilitate the automated decommissioning of that workload. As we mentioned, being able to automate the stand-up or provisioning of the workload and tie into the various different touch points in large IT environments, but then also being able to decommission and uncouple or update those particular integration standpoints. So being able to release an IP address back to the IP address management pool, being able to delete a DNS record, being able to update the CMDB with the new status of the workload. And what this does from a business value standpoint is being able to get that workload from the request phase to the delivered phase much quicker, and then being able to allow the development teams to start really iterating on driving that business value for the organization. Another key area of the platform is the automation orchestration capabilities. We talked about some of the automation orchestration capabilities around workload lifecycle management, but being able to have a single unified platform for automation of various IT operations tasks, whether it's on demand or whether it's in a scheduled fashion. The other thing of the platform, other aspect of the platform that's really beneficial is being able to also expose the automation orchestration in a self-service fashion via our service catalog. So being able to expose automated tasks to, let's say, less technical users to enable them to run those particular tasks. And then finally, the other core area of the platform is costing and analytics, being able to leverage the platform for things like showback and potentially chargeback for on-prem environments, as well as being able to get visibility into cloud spend for public clouds like AWS, Azure, GCP, or any of the other 20 plus clouds that are supported by the platform. Being able to also tap into some of the analytics capability of the platform for reducing costs when we start talking about right sizing and some of the aspects of understanding where workload consumption is taking place. Then we layer on to the platform single sign-on capability for security, as well as granular role-based access control, and finally multi-tenancy for large organizations that want more granular specification of what resources can be accessed, or commonly for our service providers that would like to provide it as a service for their customers. Ways that the platform can be accessed are via our ITSM integration. A lot of enterprise organizations utilize ServiceNow. The Morpheus platform easily integrates with ServiceNow via the app in the ServiceNow store to be able to request various different Morpheus catalog items via the ServiceNow portal. In addition to that, there's the CMDB integration, as I mentioned. There's a full fidelity API CLI for those that need to tie the Morpheus platform into existing automation platforms. There's a user interface, and then additionally, a simple, easy to use service catalog to request Morpheus resources from. So I've talked about self-service. Really, one of the core focuses of the Morpheus platform is that self-service capability. We've released Service Catalog for simplified consumption of IT resources, whether that is something as simple as a single operating system, a multi-tier application stack, or even, as I mentioned, automation orchestration as part of the platform that may be running some scripts or other automation that an organization may have. One of the key components is also being able to trigger the platform, as I mentioned, via the API CLI, also leveraging infrastructure as code for those organizations that are utilizing that. One of the key benefits of the Morpheus platform that organizations continue to see over and over again is time to value. So being able to deploy the Morpheus platform in usually about 45 minutes to an hour and quickly get started integrating into an environment utilizing our integrations. So being able to quickly integrate with various clouds, AWS, Azure, GCP, VMware, vSphere, with very little effort, and being able to simply specify things like account credentials, and then easily start to get going with the integration of the platform and start provisioning workloads in a matter of minutes. Being able to leverage the Morpheus platform to avoid some of the vendor lock-in. So one of the big benefits of the Morpheus platform is it being agnostic to the clouds and some of the underlying platforms. So being able to go into an enterprise IT organization and being able to tell a story where it's, yes, I understand there's a great amount of complexity and certain pockets and groups within the broader organization are utilizing different tools to meet their specific use cases. Being able to leverage the Morpheus platform to be that, one of the terms we often use is that sort of self-leveling cement, to where we can fill in the gaps from an IT automation and provisioning standpoint. And then finally, one of the challenges that we often see is IT enterprise organizations that are developing custom scripts and custom automation to get to a point where they can simplify the provisioning of workloads at a rate or a pace that is needed for the business to keep up. The Morpheus platform provides all that capability in a scalable and robust platform. So there's not a lot of typically what we term as brittle code that interconnects a lot of these different processes and steps. So one of the things I want to do is walk through what the Morpheus platform looks like and really just show how simple and easy to use it can be. So let's jump into the Morpheus platform. In this case, I'm logged into the Morpheus platform as myself. And one of the things we'll take a look at is, actually, we'll go into what's known as the service catalog. This is what we term as a persona or a view that can be specified as the default or only option for, let's say, a developer or even a business user that might come in here for a various reason. So one of the things that I might want to do is request, in this case, an Nginx server. I'll take a look at the catalog and I'll select my Nginx instance. And in this case, it is a greatly simplified view where it is simply me coming in and ordering the item. And then one of the things that we see is it'll then get added to my inventory and it'll start provisioning. There's also the option to, as necessary, provide additional options. So one of the big benefits of the Morpheus platform is being able to include additional options and settings. So if we come over here to our Apache virtual machine, I can specify, in this case, various different groups, various different plans that are specified as part of my request process. So in this case, I'm provisioning to AWS, and so I can see various different options that are provided for what level of resources that I want this workload to consume. One of the benefits of the Morpheus platform is being able to really tailor what's being exposed to the end user from a request standpoint. So it can be as simple as that click order now button that we saw, to as complex and granular as having multiple dependent drop downs of lists and options to meet organization specific requirements or best practices for deployment. And so I'll select that. One of the things that we saw was a change in the price. So being able to get that real-time visibility during the request process to see, I want this particular workload, and being able to see that cost associated with it right up front. And then one of the other things I'll touch on is, one of the things I mentioned was the operational workflows, as we term them, is being able to present automation and orchestration within the platform via the self-service catalog. So in this particular case, I'm creating an Active Directory user as part of the request process. And so I can fill out the information, and what will happen is it will go through the process of creating the Active Directory user. So it could be, in this case, the creation of a user account. It could be decommissioning process that ties in complex workflows to perform various different operations that reach out to different systems in the organization to decommission or clean up that user account, to ensure that the user account has been properly cleaned up, oftentimes for security purposes, to ensure that an account is not lingering around in systems that it shouldn't be without the organization having knowledge and running into potential security issues in the future. So we'll step back into what's known as our standard view. And one of the things I want to also touch on is the reporting and costing capabilities of the Morpheus platform. So we have a number of out-of-the-box reports that provide visibility into cloud usage. So being able to, in this case, let me go to a previous report run. Being able to see things like cloud spend utilization. In this particular case, we're looking at cloud usage. So being able to see what my usage of this particular AWS account is, getting visibility into what the current consumption is. All those things start to provide visibility from an organization standpoint into where are our resources being spent and utilized, but also being able to get historical views on what has been previous consumption month over month. Let's take a look at the analytics and get into some of the costing in a more granular level. When we start to talk about, in this particular case, the Morpheus appliance is hooked up into 22 plus clouds. So the cloud integrations could be simply various connections to a public cloud. It could be connection to a public cloud that includes all the regions. It could include a subset of the regions from a Morpheus cloud standpoint. But one of the things that we can see is a breakdown of the costing for the organization. In this case, it is the Morpheus organization. This is our demo environment. But being able to see what, in this case, month-to-date consumption is, what projected consumption is, being able to get that visibility from that standpoint, also being able to get the granular visibility from a costing standpoint for tenants, for those that are utilizing multi-tenancy, being able to leverage that for user costing, be able to see which users are consuming the most resources within the cloud as well. One of the other things to touch on is guidance within the Morpheus platform. So one of the challenges IT organizations face is trying to assess what resources to allocate to a given workload. And some of the consequences of that in the public cloud is being very granularly billed on consumption. So being able to have the Morpheus platform be utilized for finding out where can we potentially reduce our spend as it relates to whether it's things like reservation instances in public clouds, where we're paying upfront for a resource that we know we're going to need for the next handful of years, or being able to get visibility into whether a workload should be decreased in terms of memory or CPU, or on the converse side, also being able to understand if there is a need for an increase in resources to ensure that the workload is not being overtaxed. And so in this particular case, we walked through a number of features and capabilities of the Morpheus platform. There's a handful of a number of other features that the platform provides that we walked through and touched on the core areas. Let's jump back to what's the sales motion and partnering for the Morpheus platform to get a sense of how we can actually position the Morpheus platform in enterprise organizations. So the Morpheus platform is typically what's referred to as a CMP, or cloud management platform. And we talked through some of the challenges that it looks and aims to solve with the complexity of hybrid IT in being able to deliver and deploy applications in a simple and efficient fashion. And so one of the things that we would typically hear in organizations that are looking and really engaging Morpheus is the common one where, is IT moving too slow? We talked about that classic challenge where there's the need for the business to get a new service or a new capability. And what happens is the request takes an exponential amount of time, whether it's days or whether it's months, just to get started, from a handoff of the resources to developers to get started on the development of that new application or that new capability for the organization. So that's really a key driving point, is how can we leverage the Morpheus platform to reduce that time from days and weeks to a matter of minutes. That includes all the tie-ins and integrations that I mentioned to actually deploy a production-ready or fully configured workload. One of the other big areas is, has the organization started down the path of trying to stitch some of these things together in a self-service fashion to speed up the process, or do they have an existing CMP platform that has either taken too long to deploy, isn't providing that value? And one of the things we often can see and hear is sometimes the shelfware argument, where organization has bought into the idea and the vision of what self-service provisioning and management can look like, but they've rolled out a platform that has taken too long to roll out and really just ends up sitting on the shelf and doesn't provide that value for the customer. Other thing is the customer looking to drive self-service. One of the key points of the platform is that self-service capability that we touched on. And then additionally, is hybrid cloud something that the organization is looking to do? As we mentioned in the sort of what we term as the spaghetti slide, where there's all these various different touch points, when you start to talk about hybrid cloud, the problem really just explodes with the number of different options and number of different tie-ins. Morpheus platform provides that capability where it's the tie-in of the on-prem environment of various different public clouds, and be able to tie that together in a simple and easy to use fashion. From a target audience standpoint, really a lot of the core focus is for the Morpheus platform is that IT operations team, those that are deploying and provisioning workloads and really need to simplify the process and really consolidate and collapse the time it takes to actually provision that workload. It's always one of the challenges that IT operations teams face, is how can we provide that handoff of that workload or that resource to the development team as quickly as possible, but also in a fashion that is in alignment with best practices that the organization has defined. So this often, typically the target audience would be that CIO, VP of IT, senior cloud architect, those that are really looking to drive the strategy and the vision for the organization, oftentimes in a hybrid cloud or a self-service fashion, understanding the need for fast delivery and iteration of these workloads. The thing becomes take a look at some of the sales plays. I mentioned some of them, one of them being that self-service capability. Oftentimes, organizations are leveraging something like a ServiceNow, Sherwell, or whatever ITSM platform it is to provide that request portal. One of the great things of the Morpheus platform is being able to tie into those request portals and being able to then automate that request end to end. So being able to go into ServiceNow, click that button to order the particular application stack or the operating system, and then in a matter of minutes, get that resource or get that request completed, and then now the development team is ready to start developing and get to a point where they're able to provide the business value. CI/CD and configuration management. So being able to tie into continuous integration, continuous delivery from a development standpoint that includes all of the best practices and capabilities that the platform offers, from being able to provision that workload. One of the other things we mentioned previously was the CMP issue, oftentimes of previous platforms, is having it become, it's that great idea, but organizations are never really able to get it off the ground and be able to start the deployment. As I mentioned, one of the best things about the Morpheus platform is that time to value, is being able to bring it into an environment, start to facilitate things like discovery of existing resources to get visibility in what current consumption is, but then be able to also quickly get started with integrating with best of breed tools and capabilities for provisioning workloads and automating that process. One of the other things I mentioned was the MSP play for the Morpheus platform is really powerful with the multi-tenancy of the platform. So being able to provide that self-service consumption of the platform for various customers that the MSP is working with. And then finally, one of the things I mentioned at the beginning was the drag of the hardware. So being able to leverage the Morpheus platform and layer that on top of hardware like VxRail, Nutanix, SimpliVity, and various other hardware to be able to provide a public cloud. So being able to, from a customer standpoint, have that purchase of that hardware and then quickly be able to utilize it from a self-service standpoint, in my opinion, is extremely powerful. And so, just like I talked about some of the things to look for, the question becomes, where are some of the areas that Morpheus may not be best suited for to ensure that there's the distinction between where to play and in essence, where not to play. So one of the things, as I mentioned, of the platform is the self-service provisioning being a strong capability of the platform. For organizations that don't do a lot of provisioning or don't provision that often, that's one of the areas where the Morpheus platform is not ideally suited because there isn't that constant need for provisioning. One of the other situations we commonly see is organizations that are going all in on a single public cloud. So whether it's AWS or Azure or GCP, and they've decided they're just going to completely get out of quote unquote the data center business. So what happens is that the Morpheus platform isn't very targeted towards a single public cloud, more so focused on the hybrid cloud as well as multi-cloud to provide that value over and above what the console from the cloud provider can provide. Additionally, too narrow of a focus, if there's not a need to take advantage of a number of the features of the Morpheus platform that it can provide, sometimes it's not a great fit. One of the other things is consumption of what's on the quote unquote the proverbial truck, what's in the Morpheus platform at the moment. If there's a constant need to look for new features, new capabilities, and not really taking advantage of the existing features, that may not necessarily be a great fit. One of the other things we see is those that aren't necessarily far enough into their journey of the idea and understanding the concept of the need for the automated provisioning, some of the self-service capabilities of providing that the developers and some of the downstream teams from the ops team access to the platform to provide self-service capability may not necessarily be a great fit. And then finally, looking at who the conversation is being had with. If it's those that are more so downstream and may not have the quote unquote the purse strings or the wherewithal to really influence that vision and that strategy, that may not necessarily be a great fit as well. And then kind of the last key point is that self-service. Really, that's a lot of what the platform is geared around. And it is a core focus when we start talking about what's the value of the Morpheus platform, is being able to provide the complexity and the automation integration in a self-service fashion that simplifies the request process. So the Morpheus platform has various different pricing and product structures. So we're priced based upon what we term as workload elements or workloads. We'll dig into that a little bit more, but also volume tiers. So a workload is a discovered or managed instance in the platform. Additionally, for workloads that don't necessarily meet that criteria, when we start talking about things like bare metal or even containers, there's various different options in terms of how the pricing takes place. So additionally, we offer support as part of it for those that of a certain size and a desire. There's services via our CSMs or our TAMs to provide that additional capability. And then one of the other things to look at is the breakdown in terms of how licensing is facilitated, whether it's a term or whether there's a look at a monthly on-demand consumption from a licensing standpoint. And one of the things to take a look at that we'll dig into is the different versions or different tiers of the platform. So the Essentials as well as the Enterprise Edition. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but some of these I touched on. But basically, it's the idea of, let's say there's a 100 VMs that the organization wants to provision and manage. Those would be thought of as workload elements. And so that would be what's associated from a licensing standpoint. And that's where it breaks down the workload element as part of the request process. And so this is in essence, a pool of instances or workloads. So in the case of organizations that are spinning up and spinning down workloads, if it's a development environment or even a production environment, it's the number of licenses in that pool. So spinning up, let's say 100 virtual machines in this particular case reaches that cap of, let's say, 100 workload elements. But if I delete 20 of those workloads because I no longer need them, they were used for development purposes, then I drop down to 80 workloads being consumed. So it's really much a usage-based model in this standpoint. One of the other things we had introduced is as I mentioned, the various different tiers. So Morpheus Essentials is a lighter version of the Morpheus platform. So one of the things that it does not include is a number of the third-party integrations. So it's really focused on smaller customers that are looking to leverage the Morpheus platform for integration with the on-prem clouds as well as the public clouds, provide that self-service capability, but don't need all the bells and whistles, so to speak, of the management. And so as we can see, it's priced at a lower price point than the Enterprise Edition of the Morpheus platform. And so we see a breakdown of some of the differences here. As I mentioned, some of the integrations aren't there in the Essentials version, and it doesn't support all the 20 plus clouds that the Morpheus platform integrates with. And so the question becomes, what's the typical selling process for the Morpheus platform? So typically it would start with a discovery call to get an assessment, get a feel of the customer's interest, as well as what the value could potentially be to their organization. So this is really important to have a grasp of what the customer's challenges, and we talked about some of those pain points earlier with the complexity of large IT enterprise environments. So making sure that those have been identified and being able to correlate those to the value that can be provided by the Morpheus platform. And then typically what would happen is a follow-on demo of the Morpheus platform to walk through the platform capabilities and functionality based upon what was found out during the discovery call to ensure that there's a good alignment between what the organization needs and what the platform can provide. And then at this point, the thought would be hopefully you can get the customer to sign up on the purchase of the Morpheus platform. But sometimes there's a need for a deeper technical investigation of the Morpheus platform. So typically there would be a proof of concept that would be facilitated to have the customer walk through their very specific use cases with the platform and be able to drive that visibility into whether the Morpheus platform can or cannot meet their needs. And this, similar to the previous phase, is really targeted towards driving that purchase order, and then additionally having that services engagement as one of the other things I mentioned during the beginning. Morpheus platform ties in and integrates with a large number of tools and capabilities that there is a need for expertise around to facilitate the creation of either automation and provisioning content. And that's where the services part comes into play. So being able to easily utilize the hardware that has been purchased as part of a hybrid cloud or data center refresh strategy, and being able to easily consume that in a self-service fashion with the Morpheus platform. And then you have, after that standpoint, where there's a need for potentially services to develop the automation to integrate and fully automate the self-service provisioning of virtual machines and application stacks as part of the self-service initiative or strategy. And then one of the things I'll leave off with as we wrap up is one of our biggest customers is AstraZeneca, global biopharmaceutical organization that has leveraged the Morpheus platform and rolled it out across their organization to get to the point of where requests are going from days and weeks for provisioning of new servers to minutes, to be able to quickly utilize the resources that have been purchased. So talking about physical hardware as part of a purchase deal, and then also being able to leverage the platform for the automation capabilities to provide or drive that end-to-end automation that would include oftentimes the need for services incorporated with the purchase of the Morpheus platform. And so I'll leave this up here, but that is the end of the presentation for the Morpheus and delivering that hybrid cloud and self-service strategy.
Martez, thank you so much for your time today. Everybody in the line, thanks for being here with us. We did record this for you guys, so we're going to send out a follow-up email with more contact information and the recording, so you can always refer back to it. So be on the lookout for that. And again, just reach out if you have any questions from here on out. We are here for you. Thanks again, Martez. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks.